From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, tonight, an effort to do good turns into a vaccine blunder here in Yellowstone County. January is on track to become the deadliest month for COVID-19 across the United States. This as top U.S. health officials today say the current vaccine strategy is just not working. Well, that story in just a moment, but first, a murder on the Billings South Side today. Investigators believe a son killed his mom. Lieutenant David Cardillo tells us that the son is now in police custody. Billings police responded to a disturbance on the 100 block of Calhoun Lane just after 2 o'clock. Officers found a deceased female inside the apartment. Detectives are still on scene, but no other details are known. Stay tuned to Q2 and KTVQ.com for the very latest information. Well, top U.S. health officials say the current vaccine strategy for COVID-19 is not working. The CDC says fewer than 7 million people received the first dose. And we're learning some hospitals are being forced to throw away vaccines that have expired. Each vial contains 3 doses, but sometimes there aren't enough people to vaccinate. Well, as healthcare workers continue to administer the COVID-19 vaccine across Montana, there seems to be some confusion about who is eligible and when. Well, Montana is still in the first level of distribution, meaning shots are only intended for first responders, medical staff, and long-term care. Teachers, who are considered frontline workers, are in the 3rd level. Well, tonight we're learning that St. Vincent Healthcare vaccinated local educators last week in an invite-only clinic. But hospital administrators tell us when medical crews figured out what was happening, they went ahead and vaccinated anyway. Q2's Andrea Lutz is following this story and is standing by now with more on how this happened. Andrea.
Yeah, Jeanelle, so here is what happened. St. Vincent sent out an invitation letter to a limited number of healthcare organizations with a code. That code would allow you to register for an appointment online and get the vaccine under the Phase 1A. We're told that letter and that code was shared to a number of local educators who registered and received the vaccine at a clinic on Thursday night. But staff at St. V's say by Wednesday night they received that letter, realized that the code was shared with local teachers, and that's when they chose not to cancel those appointments because they didn't want to waste the vaccine. Now, every hospital has to answer to the state of Montana and account for the doses they get. And while they plan now to reconfigure their system, St. V's again says the goal is to never waste any supply.
So the biggest mistake we can make in this whole vaccination process is having a dose of vaccine that wastes. We don't want to waste any. We want it to get into somebody's arm. We're doing our best to follow the plans as we've been given them, and we've developed our plans. But the biggest waste would be having a dose go to waste, and we are not doing that.
Yeah, so going forward, St. Vincent is now in the process of scrubbing appointments for that vaccine clinic to make sure that only Phase 1A folks get in for now. In an attempt to figure out this entire process, I got online and was able to get a vaccination appointment through St. V's My Chart. I used that code and I got in. I had an appointment scheduled for Tuesday at 6 p.m. However, as I left my interview with St. V's administrators regarding this entire issue, that is too when my appointment got scrubbed, canceled, and I was notified by email and a phone call about it. So again, if you are wondering, yes, anyone who's already been given that first dose of the vaccine will still get the second dose. A lot to be figured out here. Jeanelle, back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Andrea. Well, another Montana state legislator has tested positive for COVID-19, the second during the current session. Republican legislative leadership announced just hours ago that State Representative Fiona Nave of Columbus received a positive test today. Senator Jason Ellsworth, who chairs the legislative leadership COVID-19 response panel, says Nave has not attended the session in person at all and has been working remotely. Last week, State Representative David Beatty of Hamilton was the first lawmaker to reveal he'd tested positive for the virus. Both Beatty and Nave are Republicans. Now, the COVID-19 response panel is planning to meet Tuesday for the second time. Ellsworth says it will continue implementing plans and precautions for this session. Now, minority Democrats on the panel say that Republicans don't have an adequate plan for preventing and reacting to outbreaks of the virus during this session. Well, today, Montana health officials announced 4 more COVID-19 related deaths, 2 of those victims in Stillwater County and 1 in each Yellowstone and Rosebud counties. Although we've added 630 new confirmed cases today, active case numbers went down as more Montanans recover. Well, tonight, the Billings City Council is expected to button up policy language to ensure a raise and group insurance policy for council members and the mayor. Now, that pay increase to begin next year would be the first seen for the council in about 22 years. Q2's Mitch Laggy explains.
Back in 2019, the Billings City Council voted to approve a raise for the governing body that would take effect January 1st, 2022. Now tonight, the council is expected to approve language that would make that raise part of the Billings Municipal City Code. Currently, each council member makes $600 per month, and the mayor makes $800 per month. After the 1st of next year, council members each would make $1,000 a month, while the mayor would make $2,000 a month. The raises would put the total cost for council member compensation at $144,000. Now, according to the 2019 council minutes, Billings Ward 2 Representative Roy Neese proposed delaying the pay increase in order to not have any differences between ingoing and outgoing council member pay. If the City Council approves tonight's ordinance, it will bring city laws for public servant pay and insurance in line with state law. The city has offered group health insurance and retirement contributions to council members for more than 30 years. Tonight's vote would just ensure that that language is spelled out in Billings City Code. Reporting in Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
Thanks so much, Mitch. Now join us back here at 10 o'clock for Mitch's report on that meeting tonight. Well, last week, Montana lawmakers decided to not approve a state agency's request for more than $1 million to help prepare for recreational marijuana sales. But MTN's Jonathan Ambarian reports this is likely only a first step as the legislature deals with the broader issues around legislation.
The Montana House has approved a bill to authorize supplemental funding for state agencies this fiscal year. But the bill passed without a section the State Department of Revenue had requested, providing just over $1 million to help the agencies start getting ready for legalized marijuana sales. Last Wednesday, the House Appropriations Committee voted to remove that funding from House Bill 3. Representative Bill Mercer, a Republican from Billings, made the request.
One of my concerns was that this was, in my view at least, unexpected, and it was a big number. And we wanted to get some justification in terms of why this much.
Revenue said the money would have been used to hire about 20 new employees to work on recreational marijuana, and for other expenses, including setting up a cash drop room, as marijuana businesses are largely cash-based. Montana voters approved Initiative 190 last year. It calls on Revenue to create rules and start taking applications for recreational marijuana sellers by October 1st. Mercer said he appreciated why Revenue made the request, but felt there were still too many unknowns about what lawmakers will do with recreational marijuana laws.
I think we thought we need more time to really sort through what's needed, on what timetable, and do we stick with the timetable in the initiative, or do we say, well, if this is going to be too much too fast, do we try to extend the time period that was set forth in the initiative?
In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Thanks, Jonathan. Now, Governor Greg Gianforte has said his administration plans to redirect the tax revenue from recreational marijuana sales to addiction recovery and economic development. A Montana Legislative Committee has advanced a bill that would expand where and how people can carry firearms. The House Judiciary Committee approved House Bill 102 by a 12-7 party line vote today. The bill, sponsored by Republican Representative Seth Bergley of Joliet, would allow people to carry concealed firearms in more places and limit the Montana University system's ability to regulate guns on college campuses. During the meeting, the committee added additional exceptions, including a requirement that people carrying guns on campus receive safety training. However, they voted down a Democratic proposal to remove the provisions about college entirely. The bill now goes on to the full House for consideration. Now turning to Chief Meteorologist Ed McIntosh, and hold on to our hats because the wind is going to turn into trouble.
It really is. Beyond our hats, we're going to be looking at trash cans, trampolines, usual things we talk about. But watch how the winds continue to increase. This is the forecasted winds heading overnight into tomorrow. The strongest winds down the east slopes of the Rockies. No big surprise, Cut Bank all the way to the Cody foothills. But then things will start to spread out as we go from Tuesday night into Wednesday, certainly from the mountain foothills around Livingston. Some of those wind gusts you can see on the forecast analysis could be reaching 75 to 80 miles an hour, then continue to spread quickly all the way across the eastern plains. So everybody in line for some of this wind that could cause some travel concerns, especially high profile vehicles, could even turn over vehicles. We could be looking at down power lines from tree limbs and wildfire risk, as well as those hot, dry conditions will continue to blow across the plains. We'll have more on this coming up.
All right, thanks so much, Ed. Well, with the lack of recent snowfall, avalanche danger is high right now. That was evident Friday when 3 skiers were caught in an avalanche on Republic Mountain outside Cook City. While skiing on a steep slope, the avalanche broke. All 3 skiers were partially buried, but 1 skier was taken out by helicopter to treat serious rib and lug injuries. The Gallatin National Forest Avalanche Center wants to emphasize if you are heading into the backcountry right now, use extreme caution with this weak snowpack.
Conditions right now are tricky, and people are triggering avalanches every time it snows, and we really encourage people to get our advisory and read it every morning at mtavalanche.com.
The Avalanche Center says go with a partner. Use the right equipment like a beacon, a shovel, and a probe. Well, some further clarification on a story we aired last night here on Q2 about a Missoula man who attended the Washington, D.C. rally last Wednesday. That rally resulted in the unlawful entry into the U.S. Capitol and now 6 deaths. The interview subject claimed he saw several members of Antifa split off from the large group. Now, in our story, we should have included the fact that the FBI and Department of Justice have said there was no indication that members of Antifa were part of that event. Up next on your Monday night 5:30 news, a field of dreams is getting closer to reality. A first of its kind special needs baseball field. And MSU and UM students are back in class. We'll hear how they're making the grade. Keep it here.